doing anything to make me feel good. Like I didn't say no to anything. I just wanted to feel good. I wanted to be happy. And that for me, whatever drug was in front of me, whatever night people were going out to drink, I was going to drink. You know, I realized how I viewed God at the time was very slave-master relationship. I do things for God, and then I'm loved by God. Formators aren't stupid, they're smart. So my formator, obviously could see what was going on, but he respected my freedom to the point of when he had to intervene. And he just said, Seth, do you feel like you could wake up in the morning and leave? And I go, no, I have to be here. He's like, if you don't feel like you have the freedom where you could leave, then you need to ask yourself how much freedom you have to actually be here.
If you could bring back one fashion trend, what would it be and why? You didn't even hesitate. Like, you got it there.
Yeah.
You need a minute?
Yes, in my head. I pray that one day.
Ready.
All right. Welcome back to The Barn again. My name is Jonathan Little.
Now Mike says.
And today we have an amazing guest. His name is Seth Dwyer from Lincoln, Nebraska. And welcome, Seth.
Thanks. It's great to be here.
Yeah.
I love the place.
Yeah.
We love the place. I'm honored.
Did it up just for you.
Yeah.
So the point of our podcast is to tell the extraordinary stories of ordinary people's lives. And I know the term ordinary can make it sound plain or blah, but the reality is you're just a normal dude just like us. And we go to, and I think you've been to our Friday coffee group, and it's just a bunch of regular dudes. Mm-hmm. And we hang out, we talk, and we share. Sometimes we cry together, sometimes we laugh together, sometimes we make fun of each other, just, what guys do. And that's what we wanted this podcast to be, is just a space where we can share and talk about whatever, hear your story and share it with other people. So hopefully if they have something in common with that story, they can connect with it, and maybe even connect with you, but maybe not feel so alone, or the struggle's not so hard, or whatever it may be. So we just want to share your story. So.
Yeah, and I can't remember the first time we met, but it's been a few years now, and maybe after Mass, maybe one day or something. Does that sound right?
After daily Mass.
Okay.
Yeah.
So I've heard your story a couple of times, and you've spoken to a lot of people, and you helped with Force and Faith at one point, and you've come out here and talked to some teenagers. It's an amazing story, and I'm excited for everybody to hear it. So, so where, kind of beginning with, you're originally from Maine, right?
Yep.
So maybe we'll start there. How you got to Lincoln?
Yeah, well, that's a long story, but
We got all day.
Yeah. Born and raised in Orono, Maine, so it's a small college town, University of Maine. Two great parents, 3 siblings, 2 sisters and 1 brother. We're all 2 years apart, so very close in age. Just grew up playing a lot of sports, and grew up in Maine, just living a great childhood. I was blessed to have a great childhood and great parents. And I moved out here in 2020, but I'm 35 years old, so there's a lot of time between then and now. Yeah.
And a really good athlete, right? I mean, did I see that you scored 1,000 points in a season?
Not a season. No,
That was your career.
I played for Duke. Yeah, in high school. In high school, I scored 1,000 points in my basketball. Yeah. Okay. But rural Maine, it's not like I'm playing in Omaha. Or,
but you still had to put the ball in the hoop.
Yeah. Basketball was my favorite sport growing up.
Okay.
But I played all the sports. So yeah.
What position did you play?
Shooting guard, point guard. Yeah.
That makes sense. Because how tall are you?
6'1".
Okay.
Yep.
I think back in the day that was pretty tall. You could maybe get under.
It was pretty tall back in the day. Now it's you can't do anything.
Yeah.
In the high school.
If you're not 6'5", you don't play.
Yep.
How tall are you?
6'2" and a half.
Oh, yeah. That's great. I'm sub 6, but
you're a 10 in my book.
Thanks, man.
Great hair though.
Great. Thanks, man. Okay, so you grew up in Maine. What brought you? How did you get after college? Did you move? Yeah, I mean, I don't know. You start where you want to start.
Yeah, no, absolutely. So grew up in Maine and went to school at the University of Rhode Island. So graduated high school in 2008. URI, UMaine, and the University of New Hampshire, like sister schools. So I got in-state tuition. I could go to UNH or URI. I wanted to get out of Maine. I wanted my own independence. So what better way to do that than go to a school right on the ocean? My sister was already in a sorority there, so sounded like a great fit for me. So yeah, entered school in 2008, my freshman year, and um, yeah, that's kind of where my obviously stuff happened before that, but that's kind of where my story really starts. Is when I went off to college in 2008.
So what is that story like? Where did that take you?
Yeah, so I grew up practicing the faith, grew up Catholic, but for me, like a lot of people, I think it's just you go to your parents tell you you go to church on Sunday, then you do your sports or you do whatever. So very grateful for my parents for establishing that faith. But right when I got to URI, I didn't go to church once in college, didn't really believe in God. I just remember getting there and thinking like, oh, I literally said, thank God I don't have to get up and go to church on Sunday. I can do whatever I want with my day. So I didn't go to church, didn't really believe in anything or God or a higher power or anything. And just got immediately like kind of sucked into everything that was going on. So um, developed some really good friendships. But when you're away from your parents, when URI is a pretty big part of school, just got real into drugs and drinking and everything that involves those things pretty quickly. So yeah, going into my sophomore year, which is August of 2009. So it was a week before I would go back to URI for my sophomore year. I got the news that my closest cousin Kyle, who was 21 at the time, I was 19, and my best friend Colin, um, who was my age, they took their lives about 6 days apart. Yeah, I believe 6 days apart. So
Did they know each other? I mean,
they didn't know each other. It was just kind of
happened to be-
happenstance.
Wow.
Yep. So that was obviously like extremely traumatic, and there's a lot of specifics within my story that I do share, um, but just for the sake of this conversation, yeah, it was obviously extremely traumatic. But I was a 19-year-old boy at the time. You know, I didn't know how to handle things. I thought, okay, I go to the funeral, then everything's good. You know, I heal, there I go,
It's over.
do the reading, and I leave. And my parents didn't want me to go back to URI. They wanted me to stay home, but I went to both of their funerals in September. And then went back to URI to really start my sophomore year. And I'd say that's when things started to really change for me. Probably um, in some ways for good, but in a lot of ways, I think a lot when stuff started to enter into my life. Yeah. So
Did that trigger you to like want to go back to mass or back to church or?
no,
find purpose?
I never thought about it actually. That's actually when I started to experience, I'd say a lot of demonic things. The night of my best friend Colin taking his life was the first time I ever remembered seeing a demon. I was walking home that night, and the night he took his life, I didn't know it at the time, obviously. I found this out later through talking to his mother, but I thought it was just my shadow, but it was a demon on my street, and it followed me home. And so, yeah, looking back, there's a lot of connections there, but I think it really entered, like, I just remember about a month after this all happened, I was walking to class one day, and I just remember making this, just in so much pain, just so much numbness. I remember saying this, just this vow. I don't care about anyone. I don't care about myself. I don't care what happens to me. I don't care how I treat people. I'm just going to do whatever I want. And I remember God's brought me back to that multiple times, many times since, to show me where a lot of pain really entered into my life. That's kind of where I shut everyone out. Yeah. So
Do you want to talk any more about that spiritual experience of? Because I know you shared it in your story. That when Colin took his life, I mean, there was just some circumstances that were around that
Yep.
were kind of like coincidental, but yeah, it just real powerful.
yeah, absolutely. So bear with me. So this will all make sense when it comes together. So like I mentioned, they both took their lives at the end of the summer of 2009 when I was entering my sophomore year. But going back to that, I just remember I was at a party in my town. It was the last week of August of 2009. I was at this party and wasn't really drinking. I had a few beers. I wasn't drunk, but I did drive there, and I knew, I can't drink and drive. So
I left the party at around 1 a.m.
Like right as I left the party, I was about a mile and a half from my house. I just felt this very strong voice go throughout my body, and it said, you need to go to the train tracks right now, walk on the train tracks right now. And it's something I'd never experienced before. Um, and you're right, like we have logic. So in my brain, I was like, I could walk on the train tracks home. So in my town, there's train tracks, but they go through the woods. So it's night. It's 1 a.m. It's kind of scary, but it's like a 5 minute quicker walk home if I were to take Main Street. So I was like, should I go on the train tracks? So I just ended up walking home on Main Street. So that whole time I'm walking home on Main Street, I'm just hearing that same voice, go to the train tracks right now, go to the train tracks right now. And I'll explain why that's important. So I get to the end of my street. It's around 1:30 a.m. I never ended up going down to the train tracks. When I get to the end of my street, it's a town of about 20,000 people in Maine. So it's more on the outskirts of town. So there's one street light. So I get to the end of my street, and I look to the left, and I see this black figure on the left side of the street. Now, at this point in my life, didn't believe in anything. Like I said, didn't go to mass, didn't believe in anything supernatural or spiritual. So I looked at this image, and it looked like my shadow. So I'm like, that's weird. I can see my shadow at 1:30 in the morning, but the street light was there. I'm like, it's probably I'm just seeing things. So I started to walk up my street. I put my head down. I'm walking up the street, and with about 5 to 10 steps, I just felt a strong urge to look up again. So for the first time, I looked up, and I looked to the left side of my street, and that same figure was there on the left side of my street, and it was just swaying back and forth. It was going back and forth. And I looked at it, and I'm like, that doesn't look like a human, and that doesn't look like an animal. But again, didn't believe in anything, so I put my head down, like, I'm imagining it. So I took 5, 10 more steps, felt this real strong urge to look up again. And when I looked up this time, I looked very closely, and what I describe it looked like the Grim Reaper without the sieve, called a sieve. And from the shins down, it was see-through, but it was a kind of like black, see-through creature. And I was like, that's really weird. Like, I don't know. But again, kind of naive, didn't think of anything at the time, so I put my head down and kept walking 5 to 10 steps. And for the last time I looked up, and when I looked up this last time, the black shadow, which, it was a demon, it turned towards me, and it started to come towards me. And all I knew what to do in that moment, I was filled with complete paralyzing fear. And I compare it to, like, I don't know if remember being a young child and you hear a noise in your house when you're sleeping and you freeze and you can't move in your bed. Like, that's what happened to me, and I couldn't move. And so I just closed my eyes and I said, go away. And when I opened my eyes, it disappeared. So then I ran back to my house, went to bed, woke up the next morning like nothing happened. So that was like the last week of August. So that was a Saturday going into a Sunday. And then, so that week, it was 1 week before I would go back to URI. That's the week I found out my closest cousin Kyle took his life. So about 5 days after I saw that, it was a Thursday, I found out Kyle took his life, my cousin, and which was obviously devastating. So that was on a Thursday. Friday rolls around, Saturday, Sunday, and Sunday I had to get up to go to URI to drop my stuff off. So I go back with my older sister Whitney. She was a senior, I was a sophomore. We go to URI, we drop the stuff off, and then we go back for Kyle's funeral. So Kyle's funeral was during the first day of our classes. So we missed the first day of classes, but I get back, I get back to Maine, go to the funeral, then go back to URI, and I'm there to start my second day of classes. So I wake up kind of excited to start classes because the year before I had mono for the whole year. Lost about 40 pounds.
Oh, man.
Pretty traumatizing experience, I would say. Didn't do the best in school because I just couldn't go to class, really. It was really hard for me. So I was really excited to start this year. So when I woke up on the second day of class, I had 20 missed phone calls. And the last person who called me was my father. So I gave him a call back. I'm like, hey, Dad, what's going on? And they said, they found him. I was like, oh, they found who? And then he said, they found Colin, my best friend. I'm like, oh, that's great. So Colin had been missing. He was living with his parents, and he left, so he'd been missing for a few weeks. But Colin was like a Maine man, so we weren't worried about him. He kind of did his own thing. But my dad said, they found him. He took his life. He hung himself on a tree next to the train tracks. So I share the beginning of that story because, according to the coroner's report, the autopsy report, he took his life, or they found his body on September 9th, but he took his life 12 days prior, which was the same night I was walking home from that party. And he took his life on the train tracks, which is the same train tracks I would have been walking home. And according to the autopsy report and the coroner's report, they were able to label the time of death, which was between 1 a.m. and 3 a.m. in the morning, which is exactly the same time I would have been walking home. And I know just what I feel in my heart is when I saw that demon, that was the moment my best friend took his life. So that's kind of the beginning of my story that I do share with people when I do share in front of kids and stuff, not kids but like high schoolers, to show this is more than a coincidence. I didn't believe in anything at the time, but it's just part of my story that leads up to me encountering Christ. So yeah.
Wow. So did you and if it's too personal that's fine, but did you ever struggle with guilt of I didn't do
Absolutely.
what I was asked to do, to go down the train tracks?
Yep, I've had to deal with that. Not so recently, but I'd say 2018 to 22 were 4 solid years of really trying to figure that out. And trying to figure out what was that voice I heard? Was that the Holy Spirit or was that the devil?
Yeah.
Like, what was that? I still personally don't know.
Well, I think the temptation would be that if I had gone, I could have saved him.
Absolutely.
But to your point, the other thought that came with that for me was like, maybe that wasn't God asking you to go down there.
Yep.
Maybe that would have been even more traumatic for you to find your friend in the middle of it. Or maybe it was already too late. Who knows?
Yep.
But
And I had a really good therapist. She helped me to kind of come to that conclusion for the most part. There's still a 1% of me that doesn't know, but she essentially said the same thing. Yeah. So I have peace with it. Yeah. I pray for him. But yeah, I can keep moving in that direction with that story if you'd like, because it comes to fruition, I think. So obviously came back to Maine. This is now September 2009, so still my sophomore year. Came back to Maine from URI when I found out the news, when my dad called me. Went to his funeral. And now my parents really didn't want me going back to school. Like, first they really didn't want me with Kyle, and now it's like, no, this is a double whammy.
yeah.
Which is, obviously probably a smart move, but me being 19, I'm like, I can handle it. So I went back to URI. So I was, there's September, October. October is when I made that vow I spoke earlier into. I think that's when I was walking in class. I just remember listening to this kind of depressing song, and I made that vow. And then November comes around. So November comes around, and my little sister, Lauren, she was in the state championship soccer game for Maine, for her high school team, for our high school. So me and my older sister, again, who went to URI, we're like, let's go surprise her. So we drive back. We drive back to Maine. And it was really weird. When I was home for 3 nights. For the first 2 nights, I couldn't sleep in my room. Because every time I would close my eyes, I would feel that fear that I saw, like that I felt on the street when I saw that demon. I would feel it in my room. And it just felt like someone was watching me as I was sleeping. So I could close my eyes for like 30 seconds, and then I would open them again. And eventually I had to turn my light on the whole night. So those first 2 nights, I was kind of paralyzed in that fear. So the last night rolls around, and I thought I was a man at the time. I was like, this is stupid. Like, I'm a man. I can sleep. Like, this is crazy. What's going on? So I did end up falling asleep. And right as I fell asleep, I started to dream instantly. And this dream felt more real than me talking to both of you. It just felt more real than reality. And in this dream, I saw that same black shadow, like that demon. It was in my hallway, and it was swaying back and forth. And I started to get filled with that fear, that paralyzing fear. And it was telling me to wake up. It just kept saying, wake up, wake up, wake up. So I was really scared. So I knew I was dreaming. So I started to shake myself awake, as you can do when you know you're dreaming and you're afraid. But right as I was about to wake up, I just heard this voice come into my head, and it just said, let go. If you let go, everything will be okay. So I listened to that voice, which was a very peaceful voice, which, yeah, I think it was Jesus. But when I listened to it and I was finally able to let go in my dream, light flashed before my eyes, and I'm sitting facing my best friend Colin, who had taken his life 3 months earlier, and he was smiling. I just remember he had longer hair, he had snow in his hair, he loved the wintertime, like he was just glowing. And we were just sitting in silence, and I was just looking at him. Yes, and I finally just said, "Why'd you do it? Why'd you take your life?" And he just looks at me and he goes, you have no idea what I was going through. Like, you had no idea what I was experiencing. Do I know it was the wrong thing to do? Will I be paying for that for a long time? I will be. But I'm here to tell you how much I love you and how much I care for you and how much I'm going to be looking out for you for these next few years. And he said, I need you to tell my parents and my sisters how much I love them and how much I care for them and how much I'm going to be looking out for them for these next few years. And I was like, okay. And at this point, I this doesn't seem like a regular dream. So I was like, I looked at him and I just felt this urge to ask. I said, is there a God? And he looks at me and he smiles and he goes, I can't tell you that. I wish I could, but I can't. All I can say is I'm in a better place. So I was like, a better place? I was like, is there a heaven? He goes, I can't tell you that. All I can say is I'm in a better place. He goes, I need you to, again, know that I'm going to be looking out for you and you're going to be doing great things, whatever that means. And I kept trying to talk to him. He's like, my time here is up. And he got up, and he walked away, and I watched him walk away, and he disappeared. And I woke up, and I was just filled with the most amount of peace up until that time in my life that I've ever experienced before. And I hold on to that. Just with my faith belief, I probably feel he was in purgatory, and he's been praying for me, and I pray for him. But yeah, that was another kind of stepping stone to my story of encountering the Lord a few years later in my life.
It's interesting because I hear that and I think back to the the Old Testament story where the guy goes to, I would presume it's hell or whatever, and he says, like, just go tell my family. Mm-hmm. And God's like, if he hasn't believed all the prophets and all and that's kind of what I hear in that story is like, on one hand, I can see where he says, I can't tell you, makes it sound like, was it real? But like the wisdom I think I hear in that is like, you don't get to have all the answers. Like that's what faith is. And that's part of your journey. So I can see that in what he shared with you is like.
And would have I done anything differently if he did tell me? Yeah. Would have it done at that time in my life? Would it have penetrated my heart in the way that it needed to? That's what I needed.
Yeah. Yeah, and I see, like, would your faith have been in him instead of, like, this journey you've been on is like you really found God, you found Christ. Yep. And that's where your faith lies, not in something that someone said to you in a dream. But it's almost like he was pointing you to God. Yep.
Oh, and maybe there's only so much you can do to not affect your free will, right? Like, if he would have told you that, would that have been infringing on your free will of trying to understand what's life about, I don't know, but that kind of makes me think about that.
Yep. And it's crazy. I didn't think about that or anything else in my story until I encountered the love of Jesus. And then it all came together to God showed me this is the roadmap I've had for you. And it just, that dream was cool. Like, I felt good, but I forgot about it within 2 days. Like, that's where I was at, It didn't bring it helped me, I think, for sure. It was a stepping stone, but it didn't bring me to surrender my life to God.
I think that's helpful because I'm sure, I know people who have had friends or family members who've committed suicide. I don't know anybody personally that's committed suicide, but I've always heard from a philosophical or maybe more theological perspective that, like, we don't know at the moment of their death, maybe as the someone who hangs himself while they're choking to death or whatever it is, they have that conversion of heart. Like, that story I think just reinforces that. Like, we don't know. And that's not to say that your dream was truth and all that, personal revelation.
This is my experience. I'm not saying.
But I think it does, I think it's a helpful reminder that we can't judge. We just don't know. Because God's mercy is it's just infinite. There's no other way to capture it. So, like, placing judgment on someone who's taken their own life, like, objectively, yes, it's wrong, but that doesn't mean that person's gone to hell.
And I just listened to Father Chris Alar on Matt Fradd, and he mentioned a book that he wrote because his grandmother took her own life, and for many years he thought, well, she's in hell, and we just stopped talking about her, and until he encountered a priest where he was going through like a general confession, where the priest was like, well, I don't know who told you that, but that's not true. Like, that's not what we believe. We believe that we don't know what happens, but there is God's mercy, and he talked about between the bullet in your head, there's God's outside of time, so he can do anything. He can step in and ask. But Father Chris Adler's got a really good book that I can't think of the title of it, but if anybody's struggling with that or has questions about it, I would point them to Father Alar for that. But
And just like, again, it's just my own experience, but just the love of the Father as well, like how much pain like how much true deep pain. The only solution they have is to not live. How much pain is someone experiencing? Yes, there are times people do take their lives for different reasons, but it'll come out later. But yeah, I had a period where I wanted to end my life, and the only solution I had was to think about this, to give me any type of comfort. So the Lord brought me through that with my family, with my counselor and stuff. But I just have compassion on, it's not just people just, I'm just going to do this, you know. They're in a deep amount of pain and isolation and probably loneliness and turmoil. And they could have all the resources in the world, but it's just for whatever reason. Yeah, so.
So what was that like for you, if that's not too personal of a question, going through that, finding that dark place and questioning, is that the solution for me, and then finding your way out of that?
Yeah. It's hard because I had encountered, I experienced this a few years, like maybe 5 or 6 years ago. So I had encountered the love of Jesus, and I had encountered God and his mercy and his love in my life. I don't know what I would have done if I didn't have faith, but I knew there was a purpose to what I was experiencing. God wasn't making me feel this way, but I knew, like, if I could just go day by day and let the love of the Lord penetrate my heart, and let my parents love me, and let my counselor love me, and my friends love me, and be okay with how I was feeling, and it would all come to fruition, whether it be the next day or 2 years or 3 years. I knew it would pass for me personally. But yeah, it's painful. It's purifying. Yeah, for sure.
you mentioned that Colin had asked you to tell his mom and dad. How did that go?
Yeah, I told him the next day, and it was obviously, it was emotional for them. Yeah. And
pretty powerful moment, I imagine.
Yep. Yeah, it was. I mean, I love their family. I don't see them as much. Obviously, I'm in Nebraska now. But yeah, it was powerful. But that's like that's kind of just one step to encountering when I gave my life to Jesus. So yeah.
How did you? So you were at URI, and then you're in Nebraska. What happened in between?
Yeah. So basically, that happened my sophomore year. Next 3 years of college, drugs, drinking, everything else. And I know a lot of people, right? Like, I was definitely, I had a good time. I liked partying. I didn't really know anything different. I wasn't thinking about anything different. But the switch for me was when I graduated. I felt really stuck. Didn't know what I wanted to do with my life. My friends were moving to New York City. My ex-girlfriend at the time lived there. It just felt like I was just following the motions, but it's like in my heart, I'm like, I don't know if this is what I want to do. And at that time in my life, this is the summer of 2012, so I graduated May 2012. This is when I realized that I didn't know what addiction was at the time. I didn't even know what sin was or anything like that. Two different things, but can be the same, obviously. But I'd realized I was really struggling with a pornography addiction. So didn't know necessarily it was wrong, but I knew, like, I tried to quit and I couldn't quit. And that scared me that I couldn't control what I wanted to do. I tried every day, couldn't do it. I was like, what the heck? So I felt like super stuck. So I told, the parents, told Colin's parents what the dream I had, and obviously that was impactful. So again, that was just like another stepping stone so my sophomore, junior, and senior year just got real involved into just doing anything to make me feel good. Like I didn't say no to anything. I just wanted to feel good. I wanted to be happy, and that for me, whatever drug was in front of me, whatever night people were going out to drink, I was going to drink. We're going to the bar Tuesday, we're going Wednesday, we're going Thursday, we're going Friday, house party Saturday. That's what we did. And we had, I had a good time. I had fun. But I thought about the day. I didn't think about the future, or anything like that. So when things started when I realized God was really starting to prick at my heart, I remember, it's going into my last semester, senior year. So this is now 2012. And I just remember God just works. He pursues his children to whatever means. And, I just remember doing a bunch of coke one night, and with my friend, who was also, he was raised in the faith, but he didn't practice.
I'm more of a Pepsi guy.
Yeah. Diet Coke. I like Diet Coke. Yeah.
No, like you're legit doing hard drugs.
Yeah,
like,
no, for
when you
sure.
say drug, I'm picturing weed.
Yeah, no.
I'm like, oh, Seth, that's a terrible story. Like you're doing coke.
Yeah, no, and I had a good time, but I remember doing a bunch one night, and I went for a walk in my neighborhood, which was on the ocean, so you could hear the waves crashing against the sand and the rocks, and I'm walking up and down the street with my friend, and we just started to talk, like, we got to go to church. Like, let's go to church. Like, isn't there a church down the street? We should go to church. And it seems such a small thing, but to me, like, that's the love and mercy of the Father of just, like, I'm going to meet Seth right where he's at right now. Like, I'm going to use whatever state he's in to, like, plant that seed. And then on top of that, like, my mother, she packed me a little stocking stuffer that Christmas going into my last semester senior year, a little King James, like, little pocket Bible, which was, like, that thick and that big. Didn't read it one time, but I remember I put it on my desk near my bed, and I would look at it every night before I went to bed. Just another way, like, God started to prick my heart. And it gets to the end of my senior year. It's like May, and we had this thing called Senior Week, and I just remember being at this big pregame before we went out to a party, and so Senior Week's like a night of partying before you graduate. It's like a night designated to a different theme. So I remember I was at this party. We played this game called Flip Cup, this drinking game, and we did this huge line of cocaine, like that long. It was like me and a group of guys, and did it. Went to this party, went home, somehow fell asleep, and went to bed. And when I fell asleep, I started to dream. And this dream was like that first dream I had with Colin, but the opposite. In this dream, it was pitch black, and I was falling from the sky, and I was filled with that complete fear that I felt when I saw that demon. And in my dream, I hit the ground, which was the first time in my whole life I have ever hit the ground while falling in a dream. Usually you wake up before you hit the ground. This is the first time I ever hit the ground. And for me, that says, like, there was a death there, a spiritual death. So in the dream, I hit the ground. And when I hit the ground, my body was completely changed to the ground. I was in a dungeon corridor, and I could hear people yelling, help me, save me, save me. I couldn't see them, but I could hear it, and I was filled with fear, and my body was on fire. So my body would burn in my dream, and then when it would burn, it would go back to normal, and it would burn again. And I knew I was dreaming. So I was really scared though, so I like tried to shake myself awake, but I didn't wake up. So I tried again, and I didn't wake up. Tried again, didn't wake up, and I was paralyzed in fear. I'm like, how? And I just remember thinking, how am I supposed to wake up from this? And right as I thought that thought in my dream, I heard this voice come in my head, and it said, yell up to God. So in my dream, I looked up at the sky. You couldn't see the sky, it was pitch black. But I said, God, save me. And right as it said that, I woke up. But right before I woke up, Colin's voice came into my head, and it said, if you keep doing what you're doing with your life, this is where you're going to end up. And in that moment, I knew that was hell. But that didn't bring me to Jesus, unfortunately. That was just another. He had to really persist and pursuing me. But that was like the last time I ever desired to do any hardcore drugs. So that summer rolls around. I'm still in Rhode Island. I had to finish up 2 summer classes to officially graduate, so I was staying in Rhode Island to do that, living at a beach house, and that's when I mentioned, I really started to struggle with an addiction of pornography. I didn't know it was wrong, didn't even know what addiction was, but I felt like I didn't want to do it, but I couldn't stop, and that really scared me. I was like, I don't have control over what I want to do. And this is pretty heavy addiction as well. So I tried to stop every day that summer, and I couldn't do it. And it got to the end of the summer, and I just remember for 1 week straight, I would smoke weed, get in my bed, open my computer, get onto YouTube, and the first video I saw during this week was near-death experience videos, what happens when you die. So just watch these near-death experience videos of people saying they either died or went to heaven or hell, and could have been real, could have been fake, but it made me start to ask the deeper questions, like, what happens to me when I die? How do I get there? What do I have to do to get there? Just all of these like deep questions we need to ask ourselves. So I do that every night. I would smoke, get on YouTube before bed, watch these videos, and then go to bed. So the last night, I, by the grace of God, I didn't smoke. I was sober. Got into my bed, and I opened up YouTube, and it was this latest near-death experience video. And this guy mentioned, he said, I died. He said he was surprised because he said he was a Christian. And he said he died and he went to hell and he came back to life. And he said he was really surprised that he went to hell because he thought, he was a good person. And that made me think, that just like triggered something in me. I'm like, well, I think I'm a good person. If this guy died and went to hell and thought he was a good person, what's going to stop me? Despite all the things I had done and all the people I've hurt in the last 4 years of college and the things I had done, I knew in my heart I was good. But then that made me think, like, what makes me a good person and what makes you not a good person? Say you rob stores. Well, maybe you had to do that to provide for your family and you had the most traumatizing childhood of all time. In our world, we would say, oh, he's bad because he broke the law. But me, who is doing stuff in secret and is, out externally living a good life, like people would say, oh, that guy was a great guy. So that just made me start to think about the subjectiveness of what it means to be a good person. And then I also thought, what if I did die and I actually did believe I was a good person, but there actually was a God, and I met him face to face, and he's like, you actually weren't that good of a person. I'm sorry. And then I would have, I didn't know too much about theology at the time, but I would end up in hell, So right as I thought all of these thoughts, the guy went on to share the gospel with me. Through the YouTube, didn't sugarcoat it, didn't try and make it elegant. He just said, he looked at me in the screen and he said, God the Father loves you so much that he created you to be in a relationship with him. That relationship is broken because of sin. I didn't know what sin meant at the time. And Jesus, who is fully God, fully man, came to earth to take upon your pain, your suffering, to die for your sins. He rose from the dead, and he is the way, he is the truth, he is the life, and he is the only way to the Father. The only way to heaven is through him. And then he said, you can trust and put your life in your own hands, or you can take a step of faith and entrust your life to Jesus in this moment if that's something you'd want to do. And I remember I was shaking in fear. So much so that I just had no idea what to do. So then he said, if you feel like you want to give your life to Christ, just ask him to come into your heart. So I just remember looking up and at my ceiling in desperation, and I said, God, I don't know if you're real. I don't know if you're listening. I don't know who you are. I don't know if this is a prayer. But Jesus, I believe that you died for my sins. I believe that you rose from the dead, and I believe that you're in heaven. Please come into my life right now. I need your help. I'm scared. I'm addicted to pornography, and I don't know what to do. Please come into my life. And right as I said that prayer, the Holy Spirit came in my room. It pierced me in my chest. It felt like I sunk 20 feet in my bed. I kept praising Jesus over and over and over again. I was filled with the most amount of peace and love and joy I had ever experienced in my entire life. It felt like I was in this cage, and I broke free from that cage, and I was living in a new, completely new and transformed world. And I heard Jesus say to me, I have you, and I'm never letting you go. And I went to bed. I woke up the next morning, and that's when my life kind of completely changed. I moved back to Maine. I read the Bible in a few weeks, read it again, just kept reading it over and
The
over.
whole Bible?
Yeah, the whole Bible. I
Wow.
was so on fire. I would text my friends who were, in my fraternity at 3 a.m. in the morning. I'd be like, do you know that Peter walked on water? Just so on. And they're like, who's Peter? Just so on fire. And God just really, and in that moment too, when I gave that prayer, he didn't free me from the addiction, but he freed me from the bondage of pornography, which was a complete miracle. Like I was struggling with this stuff 3-4 times a day, to making this prayer. It wasn't tempted the next day, the next day, the next day, the next day. Again, bondage is different than the addiction, but for me that was a complete miracle. What happened? I had no other explanation of how did this change, other than a supernatural, loving Father who loves me changed my heart.
I think that's so cool because it's easy for us, especially I think as men, to stop short of inviting other people into the gospel. But what that guy did was so simple and yet so profound. But he stated the entire kerygma, like God is our Father, and he wanted to get to know us, and because of sin, he needed to send his son so we could relate to him. And his son died for us and rose. I mean, he just presented it all right there and gave you that opportunity. I just think that's amazing. Like I don't think we do that enough. We don't boil it down to the simplicity of the gospel. Like we try and complicate it with theology and philosophy and let's debate about whatever. But like that's the root of it. Do you know the Father? He wanted to reveal himself to us. There's a way that he does that, and the Catholic Church holds the fullness of that. But just the simple invitation of, do you want to get to know the Father? Because he loves you. And he's been pursuing you all this time. And you said yes. That's profound.
And it was scary too. It was very scary because it felt like a huge leap of faith. I didn't know it was going to happen, but I was locked in. I didn't know it was going to happen, but I expected something to happen, and something did happen.
When you say you were afraid, like you were afraid to lose your lifestyle maybe, or what were you afraid
I didn't
of?
even think about that at the time.
Okay.
No. I didn't even think I was, like, I thought my life was fine other than this porn issue. I was afraid that whatever I was about to do deep down was going to change my life. And it obviously did, for the way better. But there's always a fear in the unknown. There's always a fear of, like, I don't know what's about to happen.
What am I going to look like?
I don't know what's going to look like if, I do this vocation, or if I become a priest or get married or do this ministry that the Lord's calling me to, say whatever, like there's always a little bit of fear in the unknown, but it's exciting. And that's the Christian life for me, is like, it's called to live radical lives, and it doesn't mean your life has to be radically externally to the world's eyes, but if you're following the Lord, like, your life is going to be radical, period, because he calls us to live radical lives.
Well, you jumped right in reading the Bible. I know people, myself included, who've been Catholic for decades and decades and not read through the Bible once. So,
well, I moved home and I didn't have any Christian friends. Also, all I did was watch YouTube videos of Billy Graham and just read the Bible. And I'd go to Mass every Sunday. But yeah, I didn't really know there was daily Mass. I didn't know how to pray. I didn't know the Rosary. So I would go to Mass 4 times on Sunday. I'd go to one Saturday night vigil, and I'd go 3 times on Sunday.
Wow.
So
You were like all in.
I was on fire. I thought I was gonna remain like that forever, but yeah.
Wow. You had graduated though, right? Is this after graduation?
Yeah, this is right after 2012.
So what did you major in? What was your
Communications? Yeah.
Okay.
I got in my junior year. I didn't have a major yet, so I'm like, I gotta figure something else. And this is, I think, the only one I could graduate in 4 years. So, with being undeclared. So
so you graduated, you moved back home. What was the next step in life for you?
For me, from 2012 to 15, I was in grad school, and I also worked with children along the autism spectrum, which was incredible. So I was in grad school for counseling, but that was also just the time the Lord was revealing his heart to me. Like you said, you asked if I just stopped, like doing some of the things. It's like, I didn't. Like I kept living my life kind of as it was before. And this is how gentle Jesus has been for me. There were things I instantly didn't desire to do anymore, but there were things I really didn't know were necessarily sinful or wrong. And the Lord would just reveal to me, hey, like, you want to grow closer? And I'm like, yeah, I will do anything. Well, there's this thing right here. Give it to me and see what happens. And he was so gentle. He wasn't like, oh, you gotta stop doing these things right now, and then you gotta fall. That's not God. God's like, yeah, like, I have so much for you. I'm gonna give you all my love, not all of it, but I'm gonna fill you with my love right now, and the amount that you experience of my love, like, you're not gonna want to do these things anymore. And that was my experience. So I stopped doing a lot of the things that I was doing, because Jesus was enough in different areas of my heart. You know, not every area of my heart. I still struggle with, is he enough if I'm being vulnerable? You know, there's days I'm like, oh, absolutely. There's other days of, oh, it can be lonely at times. But, so yeah, I was in grad school, and then in 2015 I joined FOCUS. So there were FOCUS Missionaries at the University of Maine, which is where I'm from. I was going to mass there. And they're like, who's this guy going to church 4 times on Sunday? Like, who's this, like, crazy dude? Who's this freak? And it was me. And I was on fire. And they invited me in, like, a grad school Bible study, and I joined. And one of the missionaries, Tom, like, great guy, he's like, would you ever think about becoming a missionary? I was like, absolutely not. No way in heck am I going to be a FOCUS. Like, I respect what you do. I think it's great, but I'm happy. I'm in grad school. Like, he's like, oh, just think about it. I'm like, okay, but I'm not going to think about it. But I did talk to my priest about it. He's like, you know, he's like, how do you feel about being in grad school? I'm like, oh, I like it. He's like, okay. So that's good. But 2 weeks later, he came back. He's like, well, actually, I was praying. Like, maybe you should just think about going to interview weekend. So, all right. So the interview weekend was in Atlanta. So I went to interview week, and this is still 2015, like May, April. And I went to interview weekend, and I was just like, didn't know one person in FOCUS, felt all alone, but at the same time, I'm like, these people are so happy and so joyful. Like, this is incredible. And I just feel so much joy and peace. So scared. I'm like, I do not want to do this. Like, I would have to completely, like, not change my life, but my life would, I would have way less control over my life, which is scary. Got back in my time of discernment. You know, I had a good interview weekend. Right when I got back, and I did make the decision to leave grad school to do FOCUS. Right when that happened, I found out my program was shutting down. Oh. So it was like, God says in Revelations, no door that I close shall be open, and no door that I open shall be closed. And for me, that was this door's closing, and I'm opening this opportunity for you. You want to live your life in a radical way for me. Again, doesn't have to be externally, but I knew he was calling me to this. I joined FOCUS, and I'd say I go back, greatest 2 years of my life, but hardest 2 years of my life. You know, I joined FOCUS, praying 5 minutes a day, so you go to training. Now all of a sudden I'm praying an hour a day. How do you pray a holy hour? They're singing this, like, other language in mass. Like, what is Latin? Like, I don't know what that is. Like, where I come from, you hold each other's hands in the Alpha Hour. No one was doing that. So I'm like, am I an alien here? Like, what's going on? So it was very pruning, but I grew a ton.
Can you explain what FOCUS is, maybe what for people that maybe don't know?
Yeah, FOCUS stands for Fellowship of Catholic University Students, and they're just missionaries on a college campus that share the gospel and invite people to a deeper relationship with Jesus Christ and his church.
I don't know if you know, but I have a son who's a FOCUS missionary.
Really? I didn't know that.
Yeah. He's currently in Ireland, and
that's
he'll
awesome.
be in Europe somewhere next year.
Okay.
So
yeah,
he's gone through his first year. So I hear you say, like, the first 2 years are woo, and I'm oh, interesting.
It's funny. Like, by the end of my second year, I'm like, I could do this forever, and I left to do the Capuchins. But yeah, it took about 2 years for me to be like, oh, this is. And right when that happened, God invited me to something else. So yeah. But it was incredible. I was at Temple in Philly. That was my school.
Okay.
I lived in, like, top 20 worst neighborhoods in the nation. When I Googled it, moving, I was driving out with my parents, and I was like, where am I actually living? And I was like, oh, this neighborhood, Park Ave, like, top 19 worst. And I was like, oh, that's going to be great. So.
Were your parents okay with you doing this? I mean,
They dropped me off and they're like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" Like, yeah, it was a
Did
lot.
you have student loans? And I mean, were you coming out of college?
Yeah, no, I mean, my parents could see something, like God was doing something in my life, and they were supportive. Yeah,
That's great.
yeah.
So are your parents? And maybe you'd already mentioned this, but are your parents? They're practicing Catholics.
Yep.
So they were seeing the changes and supportive of the changes.
Mm-hmm. I mean, I think they were like, "What is going on?" Because I was like changing at a radical rate, and that's not something I don't know at that time. Maybe they had in their own stories that they haven't shared, but how deeply they had encountered the Spirit. Again, both great, faithful. My dad entered the church actually like in 2018, so he would go to
Really?
mass every Sunday, but grew up, non-Catholic but always go to mass with us. But yeah, he entered the church
Wow.
a few years ago. So yeah,
Praise God. That's awesome.
yep. So yeah.
So you got a call. I mean, you got this tug to maybe look at the Capuchin.
Yeah, so I I struggled. Was it a call? Was it my own ego? Was it me just wanting to lay down my life for the Lord? Probably all three combined into one. But yeah, I left Focus in 2017. I joined the Capuchin Franciscans, which were also in Philadelphia. So it's a religious order. We serve the poor, and a lot of people probably heard the CFRs, the regular Franciscans, so it's all like our mission's to serve the poor and share the gospel, live in poverty. So I did that, joined that, but I think a huge part of my story is I didn't really want to do that, but I felt like the Lord was calling me to it. So in obedience, I did it.
I really appreciated your story about the gentleness of the Father with you and your experiences and what you were doing. And I just said, as a dad of kids, teenagers and stuff, I want to like really force them to listen and force them to understand this is the gospel and this is what's going to give you peace and joy. And, I feel like sometimes they're going down the wrong path with decisions they're making, but it really gives me inspiration and hope to be a little bit more like a gentleman. That's kind of what I'm grasping from what you're talking through. It's just Jesus came to you and he was very much a gentleman and met you where you were at, and he just wanted to like love you, and as you kind of allowed him to do that, then this peace and understanding and this fire ignited. So it wasn't him forcing anything. It was more of just him inviting.
Yep.
And that's where it really kind of grabbed hold for you.
Yep. And I think I'll get into that, but yeah, for me, like God's never been in the business of trying to control me. He's been in the business of loving me and being gentle with me. And I'm not a father, so I have no idea how, but.
Well, I
Yeah.
can tell you from that perspective, like having a child, I have 4 adult kids, and having an adult kid who has fallen away from the faith, like if a child wants to come back, like the last thing you want to do when they say, well, I'm kind of interested, is say, great, get rid of all the crap in your life and do everything perfect.
Yep.
Like they're just going to run the other way. Like, whoa, that's not what I signed up for. Like even you said, I gave up the hard drugs, but I didn't give up everything. And God didn't force you to say, nope, it's everything or nothing.
Yep.
That's because it would have turned you away.
Yep.
But he was just gentle and loving and slow with you and patient with you. And look at where he's brought you.
Yep.
Like you said, like you're not trying to say, oh, I got all my crap together now. Like, no, you're human.
Yep.
You still struggle with hope and faith and charity and all the things.
Yep.
But he still loves you the same as when you were doing a Coke line.
Yep.
No different.
Yep. And yeah, it's a big part of my story because I was with Focus, and then I joined the Capuchins, and when I joined the Capuchins, that's when things started to really shift for me. That's when I really started to enter into the realm I think of spiritual warfare. So probably within week 1, would hear like laughter in my room at night, trying to go to bed, would hear knocks on my door. People weren't there. People weren't in my room laughing, but I was awake. I was hearing these things. I'm not schizophrenic. I'm not, didn't really know what it was, but that's right off the get-go, like stuff started to happen for me spiritually speaking when I entered the Capuchins.
When you made a choice to go for
to go in, yeah.
Okay.
But you hear it, with the saints, and you hear it like, like you're moving towards God, the devil's going to attack. So that's just how I felt. So it's just something I just got to, kind of suck up and deal with. So that whole first year, it's called Postulancy. I was with them from 2016 to 2017, like July 2017 to July 2018. It was really hard at first, but once I finally surrendered, okay, this is what the Lord has for me. Like, that's when I started to have peace. I'm like, yeah, I can do this. Like, yeah, I enjoyed being here. So going into my second year with the Capuchins, so it was California. It was in California in the hills, kind of inland of Santa Barbara. So beautiful area. But novitiate years, a year like dedicated to like kind of entering the desert. Like you're praying 3, 4, 5 hours a day. The purposes of it is to really get into your heart and kind of wrestle with the Lord, and it's a year He brings to light things in your heart, and it's a really deep year of discernment. So I go to California in August of 2018, and that's when things really started to switch for me. Right off the bat, I just felt like something was off. I started experiencing, I had never experienced with mental health stuff. I started to experience anxiety just in my waking. Like I couldn't stop thinking about things, stop thinking about the things I had done in my past. I would gradually start, I'm a guy who needs 8 hours of sleep. I started to sleep 7 hours, 6 hours a night, 5 hours a night, 4 hours a night, 3 hours a night. I'd go to bed at 9, I'd wake up at 11, and I'd be up for the rest of the night in my bed.
Wow.
Just in anxiety, in panic attacks, didn't know what those were. Knowing that I got to wake up at 5 or 6 to go to morning prayer. So that's like freaking me out because like I know I got to perform and I got to show up and I got to be attentive, but I'm not sleeping. So that made me go in a spiral. So this is all over the span of about 3 to 4 months. But so that's happening. Then I'm experiencing depression because I'm like not sleeping, and then suicide because I'm like, I can't do this. How am I going to do this? But I just felt like I had to like white knuckle through it. And so there was that aspect. And then I eventually was at a breaking point. So I had to go to like therapy. This first time I ever went to therapy was in novitiate. To kind of start working through stuff, and so there was like this mental health aspect, but on the same time I was having dreams of the devil taking me to hell. I saw a demon in my room one night, jumped on my bed, pulled me off my bed. I was awake, like being traumatized by demonic stuff as well. That's just 2 of many things that occurred during this time span. So it felt like I was stuck because I realized how I viewed God at the time was very slave-master relationship. I do things for God and then I'm loved by God. But I got to do His will in order for me to be loved by Him, or His perceived will in my life, however I feel that. So if I don't do God's will, then I'm not going to be a saint. And if I'm not a saint, then I'm not special in God's eyes. And if I'm not special, what's the point? And all I wanted to do was feel special. And that was my motivation to do great things for God. It's like I just wanted to feel like I'm His number one. I just wanted to feel loved. But I thought I had to earn that through my actions. So I was stuck between a rock and a hard place. Because if I stayed, I was literally dying. I was being traumatized by Satan, mental health, some other stuff. But if I left, I thought I was abandoning God's will, and then God would abandon me, and my life is purposeless. So I had to white knuckle through it. Formators aren't stupid; they're smart. So my formator, obviously could see what was going on, but he respected my freedom to a point of when he had to intervene, and he just said, "Seth, do you feel like you could wake up in the morning and leave?" And I go, "No, I have to be here." And he's like, "If you don't feel like you have the freedom where you could leave, then you need to ask yourself how much freedom you have to actually be here."
Wow.
And for some reason that just did, like, I'm like, that's something I need to like pray into and think about. So I went back to my room after he said that, and I was like deeply depressed because I'm like, I think that means something. I don't know what it means yet, but I think it does. So for about a week straight, I would pray about that. I would go to mass, with the friars, and up until this point in my life, I had never really cried. I hadn't cried my whole life. Didn't cry at Kyle's funeral. Like, just don't remember ever crying. I was 28 at the time. And I would receive Jesus in the Eucharist, sit down at my pew, close my eyes, and I would start to cry. And then when I was crying, I would just think about going home. And that's the only time I experienced consolation through my days, thinking about going home, and I would have the gift of tears. So eventually, I was going absolutely insane, and the only thing I knew how to do was to go home. So I made the choice to go home. And this is how crazy the devil is and stupid, but my flight home was $666. So I thought I was giving into the devil by buying this flight, by going, like, that's how much, he had warped my mind. So I left in November 2018. And that was the start of my healing journey. Yeah, when I left. So
it's pretty beautiful what your formator shared, that if you're not free to go, then you're not really free to stay. Mm-hmm. There's such wisdom in that.
Yep.
That's every relationship, every anything.
Yep.
You weren't free.
I was filled with so much fear, and I didn't know it at the time.
Well, that's the thing. In discernment of spirit, it's like following the peace, and that's what it sounds like you were kind of walked through. You followed peace, and it wasn't there.
Yep. And I think I experienced a lot with demonic stuff. I had some crazy dreams. Like my room would be completely frozen, and all my other brothers' rooms, my friar brothers, would be warm. The hall would be warm. I'd smell smells. And I think the Lord in his mercy, it's crazy, the Lord in his mercy was revealing to me the spiritual realm to show me, like, all the fear that was keeping me there. This is just my own thoughts. I don't know if it's true, but that's just how I feel. He's good.
It's kind of interesting, just from the perspective of, like, you asked for God, but on the YouTube video you had this kind of conversion. You asked for Jesus to enter into your heart. I want God in my life. You would kind of assume, okay, now everything just gets better.
Yep.
But in reality, once you start walking down that path, you're just getting pummeled.
Yep.
Right? I mean,
Yep.
What a difficult road to... I mean, it's beautiful because we now see where you're at now.
Yep.
But there's a long road there, I'm sure, of just pain and suffering and doubt and anxiety. And so it's not... It's a every day, right? I'm sure. It's just a walk with God and saying yes.
Yep. Yep. When I left, when I left, I got into therapy. I saw the psychologist. So I was linked up with a psychologist for the exorcist in the diocese. I'm from Maine, so the diocese there, and she screens people to see, does this person need an exorcism or not, or to see the exorcist. So I got linked up with her. She's like, yep, you need to. So saw the exorcist, which was fine. It was good. It wasn't like the movies, but
Was it what I'm thinking of, like, sorry to interrupt you, but was she like, yeah, you maybe, or was she like, oh yeah, you
no,
you better make an appointment right now?
No, she's super gentle. Just that theme of gentleness in my life, but loved me and loved me through my just listening and everything. She's like, yeah, I think it'd be good for you to.
I think people have that misnomer that seeing an exorcist is like The Exorcist movie.
Yeah,
your head's supposed to spin and whatever. But like my spiritual director is an exorcist.
Yep.
And like he's done exorcisms, but that's a normal thing.
Yep.
Like it's not. We even have authority over demonic spirits ourselves because we're baptized.
Yep.
Priest, prophet, and king. Like I didn't know all that stuff till I was in my 40s.
Yep. Yeah, it was beautiful. So got linked up with her. So she was my therapist for the next. So God just placed her in my life, so providential. Because I was, when I moved home from novitiate, my parents I told him when I left for Nebraska, I'm like, you guys saved my life. I lived at home from 28 to 30, which, talk about identity as a man. I am living at home from 28 to 30 when all my friends from school or whatever are making a ton of money in the city, New York City, like married, kids, and I'm like living at home, not able to hold down a job because I'm struggling so much with mental health. Like, how pathetic did I think I was, when in reality is like, how much was the Lord loving me? Like, he's like, I care about your heart, and you need to be in a safe place for me to tend to your heart. So yeah, I would see my therapist, but every day was a struggle. Like, I went from praying 3 to 4 hours a day to, this is just part of my story. I don't say anyone should do this, but I really kind of didn't abandon prayer, but the Lord was saying, like, I'm not calling you to that, and you need to trust that just because you're praying way less doesn't mean I'm any farther away. So I had this regimen. I'd pray 10 minutes a day, I'd go to mass, daily mass when I felt like it, which, coming from religious life and focus, that's completely different. But something that started to happen, I started to struggle with things I hadn't struggled with for a while. So I started to, drink a beer a night, then 2 beers, then 3 beers, then a 6-pack, then a bottle of wine. And after a while, I'm like, what's going on? But I was so depressed, and I was so anxious with everything that was going on in my life and what I was experiencing deep. I just didn't know what to do. And it was the only way to cope. So it was like drinking, porn entered my life again. Like, and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I'm falling away. Like, but just the Father's love, like, during those 2 years of purification, and eventually, like, I got better. It was the most amount I had ever experienced the love of the Father. I'm doing all the wrong things. I'm not going to mass I'm not praying as much as I did. I'm really struggling with drinking and other stuff. Like, I had never struggled before. What's going on? Why do I feel God's love? And he was just showing me, like, it's not about you. It's about me. And that switched something for me. Because at the same time, my therapist said, have you ever prayed? She said, it seems like you're always trying to pursue God. Have you ever prayed about how much God is pursuing you? And you hear it all the time, but I actually didn't believe it. I didn't believe I was worth being pursued. So I worked through a lot of that. For the 2 years I was home. Applied for the diocese back home for the seminary there. Got in. But it just didn't feel right. It just felt like I was trying to earn. To earn. I felt more free to discern, but it felt like I was trying to earn God's love again. And eventually, this woman came up to me, who I knew very well, older woman. Your classic older woman in a parish that you kind of overlook, but it's like the holiest women. They're just always there praying the rosary. She gave me this note, and this was right after I got accepted to go to seminary again, and essentially said, she's like, hey, she's like, take this for a grain of salt. It's just what I received in prayer for you from the Father. And she gave it to me, and I opened it and read it, and essentially it said, my son, if I am calling you to be a priest, nothing on heaven or earth will ever prevent that from happening. Do not pray for your will to be done, but pray that I may be glorified. No, but if you abide in me and I abide in you, our wills will be one. Pray that I may be glorified, and then you will experience my peace and my mercy. And after I read that, I knew that I was forcing my life in what I thought I needed to do, and I was able to let go in that moment. And that was like right when COVID happened, March 2020, and discerned moving out here, a few months later. So I moved out here in August 2020 through a ministry. So.
Man, it's awesome to me to hear that God, in his gentleness, in his mercy, he lets you not fall flat on your face, but like as a way to show your need for dependence on him, because it wasn't by your own power that you had come to where you were, but by letting you slip back into drinking and porn or whatever else it was. like you recognize, like, man, I'm constantly dependent upon him. I can't do this in my own power.
Yep.
Like it doesn't feel loving at the time because you're like, where are you at?
Yep.
Why am I back in this junk?
Yep.
But ultimately, it is his compassion and his love that
Yep.
shows him to you.
Yep. Yeah, and I wish I was holier. I wish I was better. I wish I didn't do but I'm sustained by grace, and sometimes I've had to take the long road in a lot of things, but he's been, again, patient and gentle through the process, so.
Well, a friend just sent me Brother Isaiah. I think he's one of the CFRs. He has an album out, and one of his songs is called "The Struggle," I think.
Mm-hmm.
And in it says he's speaking to. It feels very pastoral to me. I love the song, and he says, "You keep telling me that you're struggling with things, and my response back to you, as a priest, as Brother Isaiah, is, maybe that's not such a bad thing." Mm-hmm. And he keeps repeating that verse over and over. And as I heard it, I was like, yeah, the point isn't to not struggle. Like, where did we get that concept from? That, well, once I know God, I won't struggle anymore. Like, that's not in Scripture. That's not in any life I've seen. Like, that's part of the human experience is struggle. And that creates a dependence on God for us. So he's drawn us back to him.
Yep.
I think,
Absolutely.
I think John of the Cross would even embrace suffering, right? I mean, he would talk about wanting it. He really wanted to have more suffering because he saw the benefit and the power and being able to go through those and get stronger, but then offer it up for people. And,
Yeah, I've heard people say, like, well, why me? Why is this happening? Like, you've lost a child. We had a miscarriage as well. And I remember thinking, like, why me? And someone said, not in regard to the miscarriage, but something else going on in my life, they said, why not you? Like, when did you think not you? And where does that line of thinking end? Because then, I mean, if I had my will, there would never be anything negative that happens to me.
Yep.
My life would be roses and perfect.
Yep.
And
Yep.
But I don't think I would be Catholic. I don't think I'd be Christian if I didn't have the suffering and the struggles in life. It shows me I constantly have to turn to him daily. It's daily. Daily.
Yep.
Sometimes hour, sometimes by the minute.
One of my favorite quotes, I don't know who said it. It's just, the things you don't choose in life shape who you become. If we were to choose our life, it would be void of all suffering.
Yeah.
It would be void of all wrong turns, all whatever. We'd live a nice, comfortable life. But that's not what makes us stronger. That's not what makes us who we are,
Yeah. I know it's secular, but there's a Jason Mraz song that talks about that, and he says, we don't really know what the mountaintop feels like if we haven't been in the valley. Because otherwise, if you're always on the top of a mountain, it kind of loses its beauty.
Yep.
But having, been through the trenches and things, then you get the taste of the top of that mountain. You think, man, this is great. I'd like to stay here longer,
Yep.
but I know it's up and down. But that's the Good Shepherd says, I won't leave you there. I'm
Yep.
going to walk through that valley with you.
Yep. Absolutely. Yeah. So.
it's amazing. So, if you look kind of fast forward to kind of what you're working on now, I mean, I know that you've mentioned wanting to work with speaking engagements and things like that. Is there, what do you see God calling you to right now?
So right now, God, I've been since I moved here, I was in a ministry for about a year, which was great, learned a lot, great leader, but got kind of burnt out. And I feel that's when God was like, let's separate work from following me right now. So I'd say for the last 4 years, I've really struggled with hearing his voice from being directed. I'm 35, I'm saying I just don't know what he's calling me to or what he has for me, which is something I really struggle with. But for the last, I'd say, year and a half, just been working through a ton of things in therapy. Sorry. A ton of stuff in therapy. So, there was abuse in my childhood, sexual abuse, so for like 3 to 4 years. not by a family member, but the reason I'm sharing this is because through my experience, it's caused a lot of pain to come up, a lot of anger, a lot of frustration, and I feel like I've been stuck. And when I think of my abuse, that's the biggest thing that comes up. I felt stuck. My parents didn't know about it. I couldn't share what was going on. Didn't feel safe. And a lot of the time, transfer my experience to them onto my relationship with God. So I just like, God, just tell me what to do. And God's just standing back. He's like, I'm not going to tell you what to do. And I realize now it's because there's a piece of me that still wants to, in a way, we all want to do great things for God, but a lot of my identity is still in that. And I think he is showing me through experience, through trial, that I want to make your identity completely in just being a beloved son of mine. And I don't want your relationship with me to trigger. You might have to cut this out. Yeah, I don't know if I can do it. Yeah. It just doesn't make sense in my head right now. I don't think the Spirit's leading me to it, so yeah.
It's all right.
But right now, yeah, I don't share my story really, and I just want to help people. I want to help people encounter the love of God, and His love for them, and the endless pursuit of the Father. You know, it doesn't matter what you did or what you've done or what you will do, what situation you have yourself in, what mess you have yourself in. Like, the Father loves you and He wants to help you through it. And that could be very hard, but it's worth it.
Well, and that's what I hear in your story is you've been through these seasons, these peaks and these valleys. Like, God's been there consistently, like you said, whether or not you were doing something to earn it. And I think that's ultimately what He wants to teach all of us. Mm-hmm. I know you don't have kids yet, but like, my love doesn't change for my kids, whether they love me or not. I always love them. They're my kids. And they don't have to do anything. Like, I love when they have successes, but when they have failures, I guess I'm almost 47. Like, I'm even starting to see the failures as opportunities for them. Like, I get to watch them grow by failing. And that feels weird because, like, I hate to fail myself, but like, it's a chance to grow. And as a parent, I can see that. So how much more does the Father do that with us when He says, oh, I see. Okay, you fell flat on your face. Like, that's great. Sounds counterintuitive, but because then He gets to see me learn and grow from that. It's like that tree in the storm digs its roots deeper. And so He's getting to see that spiritually in us as we fail. But He's just there with us the whole time. And I used to see that as like God being a bystander that didn't care. You know, He was standing there. Like, even for your abuse, like, well, God saw it. Why didn't He stop it? You know, and that desire to maybe blame Him and say, this is your fault. You didn't do anything. But like, then to switch that and say, like, maybe He was there suffering with you. Maybe He was crying with you. You know, He was wounded with you. And He put Himself through that. And that's what I think, like, going back to that YouTube video that the guy said, like, God loved you so much, He sent His Son to be abused and hurt and abandoned and alone so that you knew that God knows your suffering, that He felt it Himself. There's something beautiful in that.
Yep. And it's been beautiful to work through my sexual abuse with my therapist, with as well with the exorcist here, of allowing Jesus to really enter into those very painful memories, and He shows up and he shows, and now I'm able to. There's not one. I don't have any unforgiveness. There's only love. There's only forgiveness in my heart, and compassion. So it's a part of my story that I feel like I will be called to share more deeply into. But yeah, just His endless pursuit. And I think a lot of people just feel like they're alone. And I think that if that's the message I can share from this, it's how alone I continue to feel at times and how much pain that brings. But the reality is, like, I know I am not alone, and Jesus is so close. Sometimes we need to trust that with our head more than, in our heart. Obviously, we don't feel it, but but you're never alone, and because we have a Father who pursues us.
Yeah, and it sounds like that's what you're doing. I don't know what God will call you to as far as ministry or how you move forward, but even in the individual lives of people that you speak with or even share and hear, like when people get to hear and connect with something, like struggling with depression or struggling with being abused as a kid, like I think especially as men, we're afraid to say that stuff for embarrassment of like, I'm supposed to be John Wayne. I don't need anybody. I can do it all myself. I can build a house and smoke a turkey or, whatever men do. Like the reality is those things might be fun, but like I'm also a child of God. And sometimes children get hurt and I just need to cry or say that freaking hurts. And like your vulnerability to share that, I think will help other people to hopefully share it with other people and create an intimacy that creates that connection that we all desire. Ultimately, it's with God, but oftentimes God works through nature and shows up in our lives through other men, through other people in our lives. So I appreciate your vulnerability in that.
Yeah, I agree. And I think that kind of leads into our coffee group that we talk about regularly, but that's where, if you're watching this video and you just are like, I just need to connect, like try to find those guys, find that group of men that you can get vulnerable with, because then you're able to like this is what our coffee group is. I mean, we could be sitting at coffee right now having the same conversation, and that's how special and intimate that is. So really, if you I invite men to like at least pray that you'll find men like that, and we found them from church. That's really where we kind of started, and but there's so much healing in that, and just talking through your story, and people can relate and just identify similar wounds sometimes, and but just feel like, hey, I love you too. Like this is not your fault, and so
I think that's a lot of times, like you spoke about the loneliness, that we all feel that at some time. No matter if you're married or you're surrounded by people, you can feel alone in a room. So whether or not, I know you talked about alcohol and pornography, like there's groups out there like AA or SA or NA for drug addicts. Like there are groups out there for people to find other people similar to their stories. And those are a great start, or maybe for some people they're the long-term vision. But like for us, it's just having a coffee group. I found like we're built for community. We were created by a community of persons, 3 persons, for community with each other. And I think that's what's so connecting. Like when we sit here in front of microphones and a camera, like Mike said, it's not different than coffee. We're just sitting around connecting with other people because that's what we were made to do. And there's something that I think just releases in us. I'm sure there's some biochemic thing that happens too that somebody could tell me about, but I'm not smart enough to know. But I can feel it when I sit here and we share with each other. There's just a connection that happens. It's very spiritual.
I agree. Connection's so important. I have tried to live in isolation so long in different periods of my life, and it just leads to more misery and more isolation.
I had a therapist tell me this one time. She said the opposite of addiction isn't sobriety, it's connection. Because the addiction is to isolation. So connection is the fruit. That's what we're really looking for.
And for me to end, it's just,
excuse me.
I'm pretty calm now, but there's been I've had a lot of anger, and I see a therapist now. She's great. What's underneath anger? It's pain, and then a lot of under my pain is loneliness. It's abandonment. It's rejection. So I've had to work through a lot of stuff because it's like I really have had no other option. It's either you work through it or I go back. So I just encourage everyone, anyone who listens to this, it's worth it. It's worth it to work on your stuff and to bring people in your life that you love into whatever it is that you got going on, or whatever it is you're afraid to maybe face head on. Be gentle with yourself, but let God into those places of your heart, because that's where the healing will happen.
Is there kind of going forward, is there a way that people could potentially get a hold of you? I know that you feel real called and passionate, and you've done an amazing job. We've had a few events where you've spoken, and it's just amazing. Like, would they could get a hold of you to speak, or I don't know if you have any resources out there for people or anything yet.
Yeah, I'm off most social media. But you can. My email would be a good one.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you want to leave, I guess they could comment on this video and we can kind of get you in touch
Yep.
with you. And
Yep.
Okay.
And I have a Facebook as well.
Oh, good.
Seth
Okay.
Dwyer. Yeah.
Okay, so if somebody wanted to have you come speak or,
Yep.
or talk to their group
Yep.
or whatever,
Lincoln, Nebraska. Seth Dwyer. I don't know how many Seth Dwyers are on Facebook. But
it's gonna blow up, brother.
Probably not very
I don't
many.
know.
Well, we got one more fun thing to do before you get out of here.
Okay.
It's a staple on the barn again.
Yep.
Yeah, hashtag fresh eggs. Is that a thing?
Let's go.
Pick an egg. Hashtag pick an egg. So here we go. We have six eggs from the country farm here. We are in a barn.
Do you have the question? Do you have the question?
I don't.
Okay,
have
I think I got
Do you
them.
have it?
Yeah,
Right there. Okay.
yep.
So in our eggs, which we're not hiding anything. These are real. These are legit real eggs
Farm
from
fresh eggs.
chicken's butt. I'm not even sure if it comes out of the butt. I'll be honest with you.
You know,
Um,
let's YouTube that.
anyway.
Google that. Don't YouTube that.
So if you want to pick one, pick an egg. At the bottom is a number, and we have quite. It's going to be really crazy if you pick number 6. Did you pick number 6?
Oh,
We've had multiple runs of 6.
Okay. Let's go.
Okay, number 2. Okay.
all right. Thank you for picking number 2 and not 6. Let's see. If you could bring back one fashion trend, what would it be and why?
Oh,
You didn't even hesitate. Like you got it there.
yeah.
You
no,
need a
I
minute?
know. I used to live in Philly, so Italian like track jumpsuits.
Oh my gosh.
No, Adidas. Like,
I'm
but
picturing,
the
like-
Italians wear 'em, but the Adidas.
Yeah.
like, zip up.
Mental image as soon as you said
Yeah.
it.
Dude, where's my car? Right.
Yep.
Yep. The black and or the red and blue.
Red.
Let's bring
Ashton Kutcher.
Bring it back. 100%.
So you would wear that.
100%.
Not just that you think it's good, but you would wear
I
it.
mean, it's comfy.
And you would crush it.
Yeah.
Man, I'm picturing a repeat episode 2 of you coming on, and we all have the jump shit.
I'm not gonna say they were in the mob, but I got out of praying at some church in South Philly, and there was a diner across the street. This big old black Range Rover pulled up. 3 big Italian men just all get out of the Range Rover with 3 Adidas jumpsuits on. So I'm like, I always just think of that.
That is iconic.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was there like
good to know.
steam rolling from the
Yeah.
street curbs and stuff?
Gold chain.
Yeah.
They have gold chain.
Go, yeah, I'm sure.
Oh,
They
yeah.
do.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm Italian.
Are you?
Yeah. Are you?
A
look
little.
Italian.
Yeah. My mom's side of the family. Yeah.
You Italian?
Irish.
Okay.
Gabagool.
Gabagool, that's your mom's maiden?
No, that's just like a.
Dude, I've had some pretty good ones today. I've had the, did you score 1,000 points in a season?
Yeah.
Well, that's not, after I asked the question, I'm like, that is one heck of a lot of
There
points
are-
per game.
There are people who have done that, but
Really?
they're in the NBA.
Oh,
They're
yeah,
in
well,
the NBA, so yeah.
Okay.
There's a lot of triples.
Yeah.
I
Yep.
don't feel so bad now. Okay, well, Seth, thanks a lot, man,
Thanks.
for
It was-
coming
it
on.
was
Buddy,
it was
yeah,
It was
you're
a
awesome.
privilege to
and-
be here and
I
speaking with you
appreciate it.
guys.
It's love to have you back
vulnerable.
again.
Thanks for listening.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so well, thanks for joining us today, and we'll see you on the barn again. And we're coming up with our tagline.
Something
Make sure
about
you
a greasy wheel?
grease up your bolts.
Greasy bolts.
Grease up
Wheel bearings.
Grease up your wheel bearings, and we'll see you on the next episode. Thanks for watching, everybody. All right.
Thanks, guys.
You know, this, it tastes like I'm licking a tree in this cup.
Really?
I'm drinking the
Is it
same
working?
thing, so
Yeah.
so
I don't know if it's working.
well, so just so everybody knows, like we're still recording, but just so everybody knows, this is taking place at 7 in the morning, and we have our coffee, and Seth's drinking a beer. It's 7 in the
yeah,
morning.
it's crazy.
I don't
and,
think that's right, but he's doing
Yeah,
it.
we're not judging.
No.
This is
Yep.
a non-judgmental
Follow the
episode.
Lord, you know?
Coffee flavored beer?
That was the cheer.
Yeah.
It sounded like
not
a...
the leaf.
Nope.
Can we pause? I gotta go to the bathroom.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
do.
Can I just go out back? Is that
Yeah,
all right?
yeah, for sure, man. If you want, you can go in the house too. But no, this we pee all over the
I'm
place.
just gonna pee. Yeah.
We pee all over the place.
Yeah, you're gonna have to cut out quite a bit.
I'm gonna ad lib for you a couple of extra stories while you're going up here.
Yeah, you
So
pulled
we
up.
got you something.
Bro, you know, come on.
Okay. Yeah.
I do
thank
love.
you.
I do love.
Do you?
Yeah.
It's really strange because I was sitting there today. We try to get our guests something every week, but I was sitting in Holy Hour today, and I was just praying, and I was thinking about like, oh, get Seth something, and you know, we get you something for being here. But I felt like he was like BW3, and I'm like, I don't want it like BW3. That's such a
That's such
Love
a specific.
Speedos.
Yeah,
specific.
And I was like, I could just go get him a Hy-Vee car, or, you know, and it was just like BW3. It was like multiple times BW3, and I'm like, I'm just gonna do it. I'm gonna go with BW3, and maybe you're gonna be like, I've never eaten at BW3. So
No,
you like it?
I literally love it, and I always drive by. I'm like, I just want to go there so bad, but I'm like, I don't. This, yeah.
Oh, good.
It's so funny because, like, so I had something like that happen. A friend got me a housewarming gift, and it was my favorite picture.
Wow.
He had no idea. It's just, I mean, of all the pictures you could have found, it was that.
Wow.
And, like, what hit me was, like, Jesus was saying, I know you very intimately.
Yep.
I know your favorite picture.
Yeah.
And the fact that he's like, hey, Mike, I know where he wants to go to eat is like, that's just God saying,
Yeah.
I know both of you, and
Yeah.
you're listening, and I love you both.
I know
it's
you
cool.
more than you think that I know.
Yeah. No,
Which is
that, you know,
strange.
he says, I know every hair on your head. And I'm like, "Ah, who cares?
Yeah.
But, like, the fact that you know my favorite picture,
Yeah.
thank you.
That's pretty sick.
Thank you for reminding me.
Jordan.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you.
John, great to see you. Yep. Appreciate you guys.
Here, good job. Let's make sure there's no coyotes.
And take this hurt from me.